Co-founder at Flexa Careers, who is on a mission to enable flexible working across the globe. So yeah, take it away.
Thank you very much for having me, and hi everyone. Very nice to be speaking to you all today. So yeah, I'm going to be talking all about flexible working. Let me share my screen briefly so you can see what I'm actually talking about. So obviously, Word Monster, very, very flexible company. And this is obviously why Carl asked me to come and speak about flexible working, because it's a topic close to his heart. So I personally believe that flexible working is the future. But first of all, I will introduce myself. So I'm the CEO and co-founder of Flexa, as Carl said, and we are the global directory of verified flexible companies. What that means is we enable people to search by how they want to work, as well as what they want to do. But I'll go into that a little bit more in a second. Wanted to start with my story and why I'm here talking today about flexible working. So I have had an autoimmune disease since I was about 18, which means that sometimes I can't walk, my feet swell up, my hands swell up, my face swells up. So obviously not great for trying to get into an office. But regardless of that, back when I left university, I went straight into investment banking, which is not the most notoriously flexible career I could have chosen. But at the time, I just really wanted to do it. God knows why, looking back on it now. But I kind of struggled through for about 2 years. I was wearing slippers to try and get into the office, putting like tea towels in my shoes to pad them out better, having to take pictures of my swollen feet and face in order to justify being able to have a day off to be able to go to the hospital to get checked out. So it's pretty miserable. And after about 2 years, they said, well, we're open to flexible working requests, so you can put one in if you want. I was like, great. Didn't really know what one of those was because I was about 23. And put a flexible working request in because I was sent to an occupational health therapist who actually said that I should be registered disabled to stop me from discrimination. And he helped me put in that request to work from home 1 day a week. And 10 days after I put that request in, they put a settlement package in front of me, sacked me, and told me to leave immediately. So they obviously open to flexible working. I then went into the job hunting market, and granted, this was kind of back in 2016 when flexible working was a little bit less normal. But I realized that there was such a terrible lack of transparency in the hiring process. Basically impossible to be able to understand what it's like to work at a company before you join. And for people like me with disabilities, or women who have caring responsibilities, or people of different sexual orientations and ethnicities who naturally will earn more towards wanting to work flexibly because of the microaggressions that they will experience in offices. Sadly, we still live in a world where that happens. We all want to understand exactly what it's like to work at a company, because not every company's working environment will be right for us, which is where the idea for Flexa came along. So we launched Flexa 3 weeks before the pandemic hit, which is a very strange time, fortuitous in the end, but was a strange time to launch a business focused on flexible working. Now, if we look back pre-pandemic, around 30% of the global office population said that flexible working was a non-negotiable. That was around 100 million people all over the world. Fast forward through to now, post-pandemic, and around 80% of the global office population say that flexibility is a non-negotiable, and 92% say that they would like it. So the demand for flexibility has now gone to over 300 million people all over the world. And I'm just focusing on traditionally office-based roles as well. I'm sure the demand for flexibility outside of that is even greater, but that's where we focus. So we decided to make it easy to discover genuinely flexible companies. Ultimately, if you've built flexibility in your company, you deserve to be discovered for it. But it's actually been impossible to search for companies that offer genuine flexibility. Actually, you can see 76% of the global population, exact stats there. But why does Flexa work? And ultimately, it's because we are marketing flexible companies to the world. We get flexible companies discovered for all of the hard work that they've done, and we recognize it with our flexibility certification, which is where I wanted to give Word Monster a shout out. So Word Monster have been with Flexa for a couple of years now, and Carl's actually one of our investors too. And they have had our Flexa seal of approval for a couple of years with an amazing Flex score of 95. And what that means is we have taken internal feedback from every company that we work with. An anonymous quantitative survey goes out to all companies, and their employees give us their anonymous feedback on their different experiences of flexibility. And we've done loads of studies around what actually is flexible working, because I'm sure we've all seen open to flexible working at the bottom of a job description and thought, God, I don't really know what that is. What does that mean? And so we've tried to codify and demystify what flexible working actually is. And through numerous studies, we have now come to understand that flexible working is pretty much made up of around 6 different factors. The first 3 are kind of obvious. So location flexibility, hours flexibility, and benefits that will add to flexibility. That could be enhanced parental leave or work from anywhere schemes, dog-friendly offices, for example. And then there's 3 cultural indicators. So that is trust and autonomy. Are you trusted to get your job done in the right way that works for you? Do you have work-life balance? Whatever that might mean to you. Everyone's version of it is different. And finally, our senior leadership role modeling flexibility, because it's very difficult to embrace flexibility if your senior leaders are not advocating for it and supporting it as well. So WordMonster scored brilliantly across all of those 6 different areas, and came out with a 95% flex score, which is how we rank all of our companies as well. So I'll go into more detail as to what people mean by flexible working. Obviously, I talked about that kind of codifying flexibility and trying to understand it from a quantitative perspective. But it really does ebb and flow as to what people are searching for when it comes to flexible working. So I'll give you a little bit of a data rundown of what we see as like a 3-month rolling average at the moment, because we've seen all sorts of trends emerge over the last 3 years. We've gone through fully remote being the hands down winner in terms of popularity, to remote first, the choice of an office suddenly winning. We've had work from anywhere schemes rise in popularity pretty much every summer. And actually that is still the case. So I thought it would be useful to share what potential prospective employees, and obviously current employees as well, are searching for the most. Like, what kind of flexibility do they really want? So I'll start with location. So this is a 3-month rolling average based on millions of different data points that we collect at Flexa, because we've got over 1.5 million users now, conducting around 150,000 searches every single month. So got loads and loads of different data points to be able to rely on. And we're growing by about 100,000 new users every single month. So demand for flexible working is clearly very strong. Location-wise, fully remote is the winner. Always is every summer. I think people just want to be able to go away when it's hot and kind of have a bit more freedom. So around 50% of people are searching for a fully remote company. But demand massively outstrips supply, as we've now seen the supply of fully remote working dip to around 20%. So obviously companies like WordMonster that are fully remote have a very large selection of talent to be able to choose from. Remote first, where there's the choice of an office with maybe infrequent meeting cadence. So like, we're remote first at Flexa, we meet once a month. Demand for that is around 38%, so very close to fully remote as well. And then the remaining balance there is for hybrid. So we still have hundreds of thousands of people searching for hybrid. I feel like it often gets a bad rep in the world of flexibility, but actually going into an office a few times a week, a couple of times a week, is still in demand from hundreds of thousands of people, around 12% in fact. Time is obviously the kind of next biggest indicator of flexibility, I suppose. And around half of people want some form of hours flexibility. This obviously massively over-indexes with women, because we still bear the burden of household and childcare responsibilities, sadly. Obviously, flexible working can massively help with that. But people that are searching for fully flexible, so like totally asynchronous working times, is around 22% of people. Core hours, so like that could be working 10 till 4 or 11 till 3, around 12%, and just a little bit of flexibility, so half an hour, bit more chilled as to when you come in, is the remaining balance of that 50%. And then a couple of other really big ones that we've started measuring now. So the evolved work week is a phrase that I use to try and encompass 9-day fortnights, 4-day weeks, 4.5-day weeks, and all variations of something that is not a 5-day week. 93% of people say that they would love an evolved work week, unsurprisingly. The most popular one is the 4-day week, where 49% of people have expressed an interest in that. 32% are saying they would like a 4.5-day week. We offer a 4.5-day week at Flexa and have done since inception. It's actually a very easy one to embrace because apparently, according to a lot of studies, people are not productive after 2:30 p.m. on a Friday on average. So you're basically just giving them some free time when they wouldn't have been doing anything anyway. And then finally, the 9-day fortnight, the slightly more creative version, around 13% of people say that they would have an interest in that. And then to summarize, what is flexible working with benefit side of things, the most popular benefits that we see being searched for that add to people's flexibility are work from anywhere schemes, being open to part-time employees, offering a work from home allowance, whether it's to be able to set yourself up with a home office or maybe go and work in a co-working space. And then mental health support and a wellbeing allowance as well all come up in the top 5. So that's a kind of brief rundown of what actually is flexibility. And then I suppose probably one of the most important questions is how can companies both embrace but also get the most out of flexible working? I'm sure lots of people listening here today already work in flexible environments, so I can talk to you about how to get the most out of that. But also, how do companies that maybe were forced into it through the pandemic and they're wondering what they should do afterwards still, how do you start to embrace that kind of flexibility? And my advice for companies that are still kind of on their flexibility journey is to start by looking at how you work now and make a minimum commitment to flexibility. That should be something that you're very comfortable with, that is happening culturally at the moment, whether that's 2 days a week from home or coming into the office 1 day a month. Remote and in-person work are fundamentally complementary, and it's up to every company to work out what their balance and cadence of in-person and remote is. Some companies will just meet up once a year or meet up virtually more often. So make that minimum commitment and then shout about it. So loads of employees say that they are feeling like they're in quite a precarious position when it comes to flexible working because their companies have not communicated to them exactly what their stance on it is. Obviously, this can lead to a lot of anxiety, not really knowing how you should behave. So I would urge every company to be super clear about your minimum commitment to location flexibility, hours flexibility, and benefits as well, and be super, super crystal clear on that. My second piece of advice is don't feel like just because you've made that minimum commitment now, that can never change. Ultimately, the future of work is constantly evolving, and the way that companies work is always being iterated upon, or it should be, because you want to be listening to employee feedback as to what they love, what they don't love. You want to be looking at key output metrics and productivity metrics to make sure that it's working for you. Because flexibility isn't just about giving flexibility to the individual. Obviously, that's a big part of it. But it's also about doing that within a framework that balances company culture and goals as well. You cannot have freedom without boundaries. So it's making sure that that is crystal clear to people and that that's constantly iterating in order to balance those two sides. They should ultimately go hand in hand rather than be opposing. And then my third piece of advice in terms of getting the most out of flexible working is shout about it. It should be, if you are a flexible company, it should be the central part of your employer brand. If you think about employer branding as the act of marketing your employer value proposition, the central part of your employer value proposition is flexible working. So shout about it in as many places as you can. Encourage people to share on LinkedIn their own personal stories. People love employee advocacy. It helps to bring company culture to life. And people ultimately believe people and stories much more than they do your careers page. Make sure that it's everywhere: careers pages, job descriptions, bottom of email signatures, anywhere that people would be likely to come across you in a job hunting capacity. And also make sure that it's part of your internal culture. Keep shouting about it, keep celebrating it. And of course, you can work with Flexa to be accredited and noticed and recognised as a genuinely flexible company and reap those rewards too. So that's kind of my summary on flexible working, what it is and how companies can embrace it, just like Word Monster have done. So if anyone has any questions, I will hand over.